Lemaricus Devall Davidson spent 16 long years on Tennessee's death row, his fate sealed by a jury's unanimous verdict. But nothing captures the raw horror of his crimes like this: a young woman, bound and broken, forced to swallow bleach while still alive, her screams muffled as it burned her throat, to erase the evidence of endless hours of rape and torture before she suffocated in a trash can like discarded waste. To grasp how a boy from Memphis streets became this monster, we have to rewind to the chaos that forged him, one shattered piece at a time. Hit that like button and subscribe to be part of our growing community. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from as we dive into this chilling story. Picture Memphis in the summer of 1981, a city pulsing with blues riffs and hidden desperation under the neon glow of Beale Street. That's where Lemaricus Devall Davidson entered the world on June 13th, born into a family already fraying at the edges. His mother, barely 16 when she had her first child, was a whirlwind of bad choices and broken dreams. By the time Lemaricus arrived as her second-born, she was juggling the demands of 6 kids from 5 different fathers, a revolving door of men who brought more trouble than stability. Poverty clung to their home like Mississippi humidity, thick and unrelenting. Rent was always late, meals scraped together from whatever charity or corner hustle could provide. But it wasn't just empty pockets that scarred the Davidson kids. It was the violence that simmered inside those thin walls. Whispers from court records and those who knew the family paint a grim portrait. A household laced with abuse, where shouts turned to slaps and belts cracked against small backs. Lemaricus's mother battled her own demons, hooked on crack cocaine that twisted her into a shadow of the girl she'd been. Drugs didn't just steal her focus, they fueled the chaos. Fights erupted over nothing, a spilled glass of water igniting a storm that left bruises blooming on tender skin. Neglect was the real thief, though. With so many mouths to feed and no steady hand at the wheel, the children fended for themselves. Lemaricus, skinny and watchful even as a toddler earning him the street nickname Slim, learned early that survival meant staying quiet, staying small, and staying out of the crossfire. Did he witness his mother's highs and crashes? The parade of absent dads who promised the world and delivered only echoes? Those scars ran deep, etching lessons in distrust and rage that no child should learn. As the years ticked by, school became Lemaricus's fragile lifeline, or so it seemed at first. Memphis public schools, overcrowded and underfunded, were battlegrounds of their own. He shuffled through elementary classes in the rougher pockets of the city, where gang tags scarred the playgrounds and teachers juggled too many lost causes. Records are sparse, but those close to him later recalled a boy who was smart enough to keep up, quick with numbers and street smarts, but drifting like smoke. By middle school, the pull of the blocks grew stronger. The Davidson home sat in a neighborhood where poverty bred petty crime. Kids boosting bikes for a quick buck, older brothers slinging dime bags to eat. Lemaricus tagged along, his small frame slipping unnoticed into the shadows. No dramatic first arrest, just the slow seep of trouble, skipping class to hang with cousins who ran with wannabe hustlers, pocketing candy that turned into shoplifted sneakers. It was the kind of mischief that whispers, "This is normal here," but beneath it, something darker brewed, a simmering anger, hot as asphalt in July, from years of watching his world crumble without a safety net. By his early teens, the cracks widened into chasms. Family fights escalated. One sibling might shield another, but the cycle spun on. Lemaricus's mother, lost in her addiction, couldn't anchor him. Social services hovered like vultures, but intervention came late and light. At 14, he got tangled in his first real scrape, a fistfight at school that drew blood and a suspension. It wasn't malice, witnesses said, just a kid pushed too far, lashing out at a bully who mocked his threadbare clothes. But suspensions piled up, turning potential into absence. He dropped out quietly, the hallways fading behind him as the streets sharpened their call. What if one more chance had pulled him back? The question hangs, unanswered, as we peer closer. Then, at 16, a flicker of hope pierced the gloom. Tennessee's child welfare system stepped in, placing Lemaricus in a group home in Jackson, a quieter town about 80 miles east of Memphis. Run by Alice Rhea, a no-nonsense woman with a heart for the hard cases, the home was a regimented bubble. chores at dawn, group therapy circles, meals at a table where rules mattered more than rage. For nearly a year, Lemaricus thrived there, or so it seemed. He responded to structure like a plant to sunlight. Rhea would testify years later, her voice cracking in a Knoxville courtroom. He mopped floors without complaint, aced basic GED prep classes they pushed on him, even cracked shy jokes during family-style dinners. No more dodging belts or empty fridges. Here, adults saw potential in the lanky teen with the guarded eyes. Rhea fought for him, petitioning to keep him longer, whispering to caseworkers about the boy who could fix cars with scrap tools and dreamed, in fleeting moments, of something beyond the grind. But structure has limits when the roots run rotten. Whispers from the home hinted at old habits creeping back, sneaking out for late-night walks that smelled of smoke and secrets, arguments with roommates that echoed his mother's chaos. When the group home discharged him at 17, the system shuffled him to foster care with the Rudd family, a couple in their 50s who'd opened their door to troubled souls before. They treated him like kin, not a project. Thanksgiving turkeys shared, birthdays marked with cake, even after he slipped up with a joyride in their old Chevy. The Rudds believed in redemption, pouring love into the void his blood family left. We saw the good in him. The foster mom would plead during his trial, tears streaming as she begged the jury for mercy. For a spell, it worked. Lemaricus enrolled in a vocational program, tinkering with engines, flashing that rare grin when he got something right. Asterisk, could this be the turn? The path out of the pit. Asterisk. Yet the streets have long memories, and blood calls to blood. His half-brother Letalvis Cobbins, cut from the same frayed cloth, drifted back into his orbit, pulling tales of easy money and Memphis nights. The pull was magnetic, old crew members spotting Slim on corners, offering nods and nods toward darker deals. By 18, Lemaricus was dipping toes into robbery, small hits on gas stations that fed the adrenaline his childhood starved. No guns yet, just bravado and a switchblade tucked in his waistband. The Rudds pleaded, grounded him, but trust eroded like riverbank clay. A botched carjacking at 19 landed him in juvie, his first taste of bars, cold and clanging, a preview of the cage to come. Released on probation, he vowed change, crashing back at the Rudds with promises scrawled on napkins. But probation's leash chafed, and temptation whispered louder. At 20, the dam broke. Another carjacking, this one with a pistol pressed to a driver's temple, escalated to aggravated robbery. The judge, eyeing his file thick with warnings, handed down 5 years in adult prison. Behind those walls in West Tennessee, Lemaricus hardened, tats inked on knuckles, alliances forged in yard scraps, letters home laced with defiance. The boy who mopped floors in Jackson faded. Slim emerged, lean and lethal, counting days till release. Paroled in August 2006 at 25, he washed up in Knoxville, chasing his brother's shadow and drug flips that promised quick cash. No job, no plan, just the echo of old hungers. What happens when the system's safety nets snap, and a man steps free with ghosts at his heels? The answer lurked in the winter chill of 2007, waiting to unleash hell. But that's a story for another turn of the page, one that would etch his name in infamy and seal his doom. The winter air in Knoxville hung sharp and unforgiving on January 6, 2007, the kind that bites into your bones and whispers promises of a cozy night ahead. For Channon Christian and Hugh Christopher Chris Newsom Jr., it was supposed to be just that, a simple Saturday date, the sort young love thrives on. Channon, 21, was a bright-eyed student at the University of Tennessee, juggling classes in sociology and dreams of a future filled with laughter, maybe a wedding someday, kids chasing fireflies in the yard. Chris, 23, was her steady anchor, a mechanic with calloused hands and a grin that lit up rooms, fresh from a shift and eager for downtime. They'd spent the evening like so many others. Dinner at Chili's with friends, plates piled high with fajitas and easy chatter, the hum of possibility in every shared glance. By 9 p.m., they dropped off Shannon's best friend, Jennifer Allen, at her place in the Washington Ridge Apartments off Washington Pike. What could go wrong in a quiet parking lot under the glow of sodium lamps? A quick kiss goodbye, Chris leaning into the open driver's door of Shannon's silver 2005 Toyota 4Runner, their fingers brushing one last time. But in the shadows nearby, trouble had been brewing, hungry and unchecked. Lemaricus Davidson, 25 and scraping by on parole scraps, wasn't supposed to cross their path that night. Fresh out of prison after a string of robberies, he was crashing in a rundown rental at 2316 Chipman Street in East Knoxville, a sagging two-story house in a forgotten corner where weeds choked the sidewalks and trains rumbled like distant thunder. Broke, bitter after a fight with his girlfriend Daphne Sutton, Davidson had been stewing with his half-brother Letalvis Cobbins, who'd rolled into town from Michigan with his girlfriend Vanessa Coleman, 18, and buddy George Thomas, 23. All four were crashing at the house, jobless and restless, the air thick with cigarette smoke and unspoken schemes. Eric Boyd, 24, Davidson's burly neighbor with a rap sheet of his own, had tagged along for the ride. They'd been drinking, plotting a quick carjacking for cash and wheels. Nothing personal, just survival in their eyes. Spotting the forerunner pull in, Davidson grabbed his .22 caliber high-standard revolver, the cold metal a familiar weight in his palm. Cobbins and Thomas followed suit, hearts pounding with that mix of fear and thrill. Two white kids, Cobbins would later mutter in a haze of denial, as if race sealed some twisted fate. But race didn't matter in the moment. Opportunity did. It happened fast, like a nightmare snapping into focus. Around 9:15 p.m., as Chris lingered by the door, Davidson burst from the darkness, gun leveled at his chest. "Get in." The words were a guttural bark, slicing the night. Channon froze behind the wheel, her hazel eyes widening in terror, but there was no time for screams. Thomas yanked Chris into the back, slamming him face down on the seat, while Cobbins pressed his pistol to Shannon's temple. "Drive where we say, or he dies." Their hands were wrenched behind their backs, bound tight with black electrical cords scavenged from the house, the rough bite drawing first blood. Boyd jumped behind the wheel after they forced Channon into the passenger seat, her purse spilling lip gloss and keys onto the floor mat. Davidson slid in beside her, the revolver's barrel digging into her ribs, a silent threat. The forerunner peeled out, headlights cutting through the fog, heading east toward Chipman Street, barely a mile away, but it felt like a descent into hell. Chris, muffled and blind in the back, could only feel the engine's growl and the hot press of bodies against his. Channon whispered prayers under her breath, thinking of her parents waiting up, oblivious. What raced through her mind then? The last free thoughts of a girl who'd never see 22. The family barbecue next weekend, or the way Chris's laugh crinkled his eyes. The drive took minutes, but each bumped Jared like a lifetime. They pulled into the gravel driveway of 2316 Chipman, the house looming like a trap, peeling blue paint, porch light flickering out. Dragged inside through the back door, the couple was shoved into the dim living room, the air stale with old takeout and despair. Coleman lounged on the couch, watching TV, her presence a quiet complicity as the men argued in hushed snarls. What now? Let them go? No. Too risky. They'd seen faces, heard names. Davidson, eyes hard as flint, decided their fate right there. "They're witnesses," he said, voice low. Chris was stripped to his boxers, beaten with fists and boots until ribs cracked, then raped, first with an object that tore him inside, the pain so raw it stole his breath. Channon, dragged to the north bedroom, was promised mercy if she played along. "Call your people," Davidson ordered, gun to her head. Trembling, she dialed her parents, voice cracking. "Hey, I'm okay, just out with Chris." Lies that bought her nothing but more horror. Over the next hours, as the clock ticked past midnight, the assaults blurred into a frenzy. Channon was raped repeatedly, orally by Davidson and Cobbins, the force tearing her mouth's frenulum, vaginally and anally by Davidson, his DNA later staining her jeans and body like a brand. Blows rained down. Kicks to her groin that left her bleeding, fists to her head swelling her face, bruises blooming like dark flowers on her pale skin. "Please," she begged at one point, voice a broken thread. "I don't want to die." But Mercy was a stranger in that house. Meanwhile, Chris's nightmare peaked around 3:30 a.m. on January 7th. Yanked from the cargo hold of the forerunner, pants gone, barefoot in the January chill, he was marched 300 yards to the railroad tracks, a dog leash cinched around his neck like a noose. Bound ankles with his own belt, Hands behind his back, a sock gag biting his tongue, bandana blindfold, sweatshirt hood tied over his head. He stumbled over gravel, feet shredded and bloody, the cold seeping into his bones. There, in the shadow of freight cars, Boyd handed the revolver to Thomas. "Do it." Shots rang out. First to the neck, Chris crumpling but gasping. Then the back, survival flickering. Finally, Davidson's gun pressed muzzle to skull, the execution blast severing his brain stem in an instant of unimaginable agony. Wrapped in a comforter, doused in gasoline from a red can, his body was set ablaze, flames licking the night as the group watched, silent. The fire charred flesh but couldn't erase the story. Shell casings scattered like accusations, his mud-caked feet a testament to the forced march. Channon, hearing the pops from the bedroom window, knew. Her boyfriend, gone. The grief in that moment. Did it break her spirit or fuel a desperate spark to endure? Back at the house, the horror didn't pause for breath. The men returned, clothes reeking of smoke, and turned on Channon again. More rapes, more beatings, her body a canvas of torment. To scrub away their sins, they poured bleach down her throat, the chemical burn searing her esophagus like fire, then doused her genitals, scrubbing raw to kill DNA. She gagged, choking on the acrid flood, eyes streaming as it etched her final screams into silence. By afternoon, with the others stepping out for smokes and schemes, Davidson hog-tied her alone. Curtains and bedsheets knotted tight around wrists, ankles, neck, forcing her into a fetal curl. A white grocery bag knotted over her head, 5 black trash bags swallowing her near-naked form, just a pink sweater clinging like a shroud. Shoved into the kitchen trash can, she suffocated slowly, ribs compressing, air thinning over hours, perhaps pleading in the dark until blackness claimed her sometime between Sunday afternoon and Monday. The tragedy? She was alive when they left her there, a 110-pound girl discarded like garbage, her last breaths echoing in an empty house. Families across Knoxville would later weep over what might have been. Channon walking down the aisle, Chris coaching Little League, lives unlived in a spray of bullets and bleach. In the haze after, the group scattered like roaches under light, but cracks formed fast. Boyd bolted first, washing blood from his hands and vowing silence, crashing at a buddy's to dodge the storm. Davidson, ever the opportunist, pocketed spoils, Shannon's diamond ring, iPod, camera, Chris's Nike shoes on his feet, phone buzzing in his pocket as he texted Daphne, "Miss you." He even drove the 4Runner to a Washington Ridge apartment, abandoning it on Glider Avenue with seats shoved back and mud tracked in, a half-hearted wipe down, missing his thumbprint on an envelope. Coleman jotted in her journal, "An adventure," as if tallying a road trip, while Cobbins and Thomas chain-smoked, nerves fraying. They divvied clothes, burned photos in the sink, but panic crept in. Whispers of cops. What if she talked? Little did they know, the world was already unraveling their web. By noon on January 7th, a Norfolk Southern worker spotted the smoldering lump by the tracks. Chris's body, comforter charred, face unrecognizable but dog tags glinting. Hugh, Christopher Newsom. The call went out. Homicide. Shannon's parents, Hugh and Mary, hadn't slept, fielding her eerie call and pacing floors. "Where's my baby?" Mary sobbed, as missing persons flyers hit streets. Friends joined the hunt, fanning Knoxville's veins. At 1:30 a.m. January 8th, they found the 4Runner, empty, ominous. Prints lifted, one screaming Lemaricus Davidson. By dawn, cops swarmed Chipman Street, neighbors spilling. That house. Lights on odd hours, shouts all night. January 9th, a tactical team breached 2316, the stench hitting like a wall. In the kitchen, the trash can, bags bulging, a bare foot protruding. Channon, curled in death, sweater askew, bleach still stinging the air. The city gasped. Parents collapsed in wails that echoed for years. How does a mother bury a daughter stolen on a whim? What words console a father who danced with his girl at prom, now cradling ashes? The noose tightened quick. Phone pings traced Cobbins to Lebanon, Kentucky, January 11th. State troopers raided a trailer. Him, Thomas, Coleman in cuffs, Shannon's purse spilling secrets, a laptop open to news feeds of the horror. Boyd flipped under pressure, spilling to feds. Chipman Street, man. He led them to a vacant Reynolds Street house, boards creaking as SWAT burst in. There was Davidson, huddled in a bedroom, revolver under the mattress, Chris's Nikes still laced on his feet. "It's over," an officer growled as cuffs clicked. 5 versions tumbled from his lips in interrogation, denials melting to half-truths. But DNA, prints, casings wove the noose tighter. The man who'd forged chaos from neglect now faced its mirror, a cage of his making. But as trials loomed, whispers of appeals and scandals teased more twists. Could justice slip like sand? What do you think? Did the system fail them twice? Handcuffs bit into Lemaricus Davidson's wrists as Knoxville SWAT hauled him from that boarded-up Reynolds Street hideout on January 11, 2007, the winter wind whipping like Judgment Day. The revolver, his .22 high standard, still warm from secrets, tucked under the mattress. Chris Newsom's Nike snug on his feet, Channon Christian's diamond ring glinting in his pocket. But in the stark fluorescent glare of the interrogation room at Knox County Jail, Davidson didn't break easy. No, he danced a slippery tango of lies, each version peeling back just enough to keep the cops guessing. What if one of those tales had stuck? Could a silver tongue have rewritten the nightmare? It started simple, almost cocky. Selling dope. That's all I do, sell dope. He shrugged to Knoxville PD investigator Ryan Flores and ATF agent Forrest Woody Webb, his voice steady as he leaned back in the metal chair. Alibi number 1. He'd bounced from his Chipman Street rental Friday night, crashing elsewhere, oblivious to the storm brewing at home. No carjacking, no screams, no blood on his hands, just a dealer minding his grind, maybe slinging a few bags to pay rent. The detectives leaned in, faces like stone, playing good cop, bad cop with the weight of fresh forensics pressing down. They hinted at his half-brother Latalvis Cobbins and Buddy George Thomas spilling guts in Kentucky lockup, fingers pointing straight at Slim. Davidson's eyes flickered. Gotcha, but he doubled down. I ain't never seen that girl before in my life. He snapped when they flashed Shannon's photo, her smile frozen in innocence. But pressure cooks truth, or at least bends it. Over hours that stretched into the gray dawn, Davidson flipped the script 5 times, each confession a half-step deeper into the abyss. Version 2. Yeah, Cobbins and Thomas rolled up around 10 p.m. Friday with the Forerunner, victims bound like packages in the back. They carjacked him, he admitted, shrugging off the gun he'd handed over for the job. But he played the bystander, watched from the couch as they roughed up Chris, heard the slaps echo, then dipped out to smoke weed in the yard. Came back, saw Channon alone, hogtied and pleading, "I don't want to die." Heart-wrenching words, but not his mess. He even helped by driving her ride for a quick drug flip, wiping it down like a pro before ditching it. No rapes, no shots fired by him. Swore his DNA wouldn't match the swabs. Version 3 added flavor. Maybe he loaned the gun, but Thomas pulled the trigger on those tracks. By dawn, exhaustion cracked him wider. Cobbins had bragged about the fun with Channon, but Davidson? Just the wheelman, the cleaner, the guy who heard her choke on bleach, but looked away. Lies layered like onion skin, each one a desperate grab at daylight. The tape rolled, capturing every shift, every averted gaze. Flores pressed. You know this ends with bodies, right? Davidson just stared at the table, the room closing in like the trash bags that would bury his excuses. That footage became the prosecution's hammer, but Davidson's lawyers, Doug Trant and David Eldridge, saw cracks to exploit. Post-arrest, they filed to suppress the whole thing, crying coercion, SWAT's no-knock raid, rifles sweeping rooms, the intimidating jail vibe overbearing his will. Judge Richard Baumgartner shot it down. Voluntary, he ruled. No Miranda slip-ups, just a man cornered by his own mess. The defense pivoted hard. This wasn't a random torture fest. It was a drug deal gone sideways. Channon and Chris, they argued, weren't innocent dates. They were hunting highs in East Knoxville's underbelly, drawn to Chipman Street by whispers of cheap pills and powder. Witnesses backed the spin. Jeffrey Bradley claimed he'd spotted a blonde like Channon at Davidson's door days earlier, haggling over baggies. Ethel Freeman, the no-nonsense landlady, testified Davidson owed her rent, expected a drop-off that fateful night. Maybe the Forerunner's cargo was payoff, not plunder. They came willing, Trant hammered in opening statements, painting the couple as thrill-seekers, not victims. Blame the crew, sure, Boyd the muscle, Cobbins the hothead, but Davidson? Minor player in a chaotic free-for-all. And the publicity? A media circus of grief and rage. They begged for a venue change, but stuck with Knox County jurors, grilling 200 prospects over 8 grueling days. Can you set aside the headlines? Voir dire dragged like a funeral march, seating 12 who swore neutrality. But whispers lingered. Would hometown fury tip the scales? The trial kicked off October 19, 2009, in a Knox County courtroom thick with tension, family photos of Channon and Chris on easels, like ghosts at the table. Prosecutors Leland Price and Takesha V. Fitzgerald came swinging. Day 1, the carjacking video from Washington Ridge, grainy but gut-punching, showing the forerunners' taillights vanishing into night. Then the House of Horrors, photos of blood-smeared walls, the kitchen trash can with Shannon's foot protruding, bleached and bagged. Forensics sealed the noose. Davidson's prints on the SUV's envelope, Shannon's purse strap, her jeans, even the trash bags cradling her corpse. His semen, irrefutable, screaming volume. In her mouth, vagina, anus, staining denim like accusation. Shell casings from Chris's execution matched Davidson's revolver to AT, class characteristics locking it as the murder tool. He wore the kid's shoes at bust. Newsom's phone buzzed in his pocket. The alibi crumbled like ash. No drug by voluntary visit when bindings bit flesh and bleach burned lungs. He could have let them walk, Price thundered, voice cracking. Instead, he chose hell. Defense fought dirty, cross-examining parents. Didn't know your son smoked weed? Amphetamines. Tramp prodded Mary Newsom, hinting Chris's habits led them to dealers like Slim. But it rang hollow. Friends testified the couple barely knew Chipman existed. Their night pure romance, not reconnaissance. Day 7, defense rested thin. Just Freeman and Bradley, no big guns, banking on doubt. Closing arguments? Fitzgerald replayed the interrogation tape. Davidson's lies looping like a bad dream. 5 stories. That's not innocence. That's guilt in surround sound. Trant countered. A dope house, not a death house. Blame the others. But the jury, 12 everyday folks from the county that mourned, didn't buy it. October 30th, 2009. After 2 days chewing evidence, they filed back, Foreman stone-faced. Guilty. All 46 counts. 2 premeditated murders, 16 felony murders, aggravated rapes, kidnappings, robberies. Gasps rippled. Shannon's dad, Hugh Christian, buried his face in hands. Penalty phase blurred into sobs and strategies. Prosecutors trotted aggravators. Heinous cruelty, torture's slow burn, avoiding arrest, bleach to erase traces. Felonies in play, rape mid-murder. Victim impact? Mary Newsom's whisper, my boy's laugh, gone forever. Defense mustered mitigation. Rosalind Andrews, the specialist, sketched a boy broken by crack mom neglect, foster flickers of hope, snuffed by streets. Dr. Diana Brown, psych whiz, pegged him smart, no brain damage, just bad choices. Family? Spotty. Sister Misha begged mercy, but others ghosted. Jurors waited 3 hours. December 8th to 10th hearings sealing fate. December 10th, 10:45 a.m. Death. Unanimous on 4 caps. Lethal injection for both souls stolen. Judge Baumgartner, voice grave, tacked 80 years consecutive for the rest. One of the most outrageous, cruel cases this court has seen. Davidson stared blank. No tears, just the echo of Shannon's plea in his head. His half-brother Latalvis Cobbins? Tried first, August 2009, guilty on murders, facilitation, rape. No death. Jury spared him life without parole August 26th, plus 100 years stacked like bricks. Mercy for the misguided. They reasoned, but for the ringleader? The needle loomed. Appeals would claw for years. Tennessee Supreme Court rubber-stamped it 2016, post-conviction bids denied. Even a 2025 court dust up over AG bias. But as Davidson sits on death row, Riverbend maximum, ghosts whispering, one question haunts. When the gurney calls, will regrets finally spill? Or does a man like Slim go silent to the end? Lemaricus Davidson stepped into Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville on a cold December day in 2009, the death warrant still fresh in his file. The gates clanged shut behind him, and for the first time in his life, the chaos of the streets was gone. No more hustling, no more guns, no more running. Just a 6x9 cell, a steel toilet, and the slow tick of a clock he couldn't outrun. Death row at Riverbend sits in Unit 2, a long, quiet hallway of single cells. The lights never fully go out. Meals slide through a slot. Oatmeal, bologna sandwiches, powdered eggs. Showers come 3 times a week, always cuffed, always watched. Davidson's first years were tense. Guards remember him as quiet but watchful, eyes always scanning, like he was still on the block. He kept to himself. No fights, no outbursts. Just silence. He got the same routine every day. Wake up at 6 a.m. lights on. Breakfast tray. Then hours alone. He could walk the tier for an hour if he behaved. 1 hour outside the cell, pacing past the same faces, the same bars. Most days he stayed inside. He read. A lot. Legal books at first. Thick binders of trial transcripts, appeal motions, anything his lawyers sent. He underlined, made notes in the margins, circled words like error and prejudice. He wrote letters too, long ones. To his sister, to a pen pal in Texas, to the courts. Always the same tone, calm, polite, like a man asking for a second chance he knew might never come. Did he show remorse? Not in words. Not to guards. Not in the visitor logs. One officer who worked the unit for years said Davidson never cried, never raved, never said sorry. He'd talk about the food, the weather, his mom's health. But never the crime. Never the names. Channon, Chris. They didn't come up. Not once. Religion came later. Around 2014, a volunteer chaplain started Bible study on the row. Davidson joined. Not loud about it. No preaching. Just sat in the back with a worn King James, nodding along. He got baptized in a plastic tub in 2016. Water poured over his head while 2 guards stood watch. After that, he kept a small cross drawn on his cell wall in pencil. Guards said he prayed before meals. Quietly, head down. But when a reporter asked through the mail if he'd found God, Davidson wrote back, I talked to him. He listens. That's all I'll say. His appeals kept him busy. First came the direct appeal, argued in 2013, denied by the Tennessee Supreme Court in 2016. Then post-conviction claims, bad lawyers, biased judge, tainted jury. One motion in 2018 claimed the original trial judge, Richard Baumgartner, was addicted to painkillers and shouldn't have presided. The courts looked. They agreed something was wrong, but not enough to throw out Davidson's verdict. New trials for Cobbins and Thomas? Yes. For Davidson? No. His sentence stood. He got a new execution date in 2022. Then another delay. Then another. Each time, the prison went on lockdown. No visits. No mail. Just waiting. Davidson gained weight, prison food, and no gym. His hair went gray at the temples. He started wearing reading glasses. The boy from Memphis looked older than his years. He made a few friends on the row. Not close. Just nods in the yard. One inmate, doing life for murder, said Davidson helped him with legal paperwork. He knew the law better than some lawyers, the man said. Another said Davidson shared commissary, honey buns, coffee, without asking for anything back. Small kindnesses in a place that had none. Guards had mixed feelings. Some said he was respectful, called them sir, never gave trouble. Others said it was an act. He's still slim, one told a reporter off the record. Just in a cage. In 2025, a new motion surfaced. Claims of racial bias in sentencing, questions about the death penalty itself. Davidson signed it. His lawyers filed it. The courts are still reading. He waits. Still reads. Still writes. Still prays. 16 years in a box. No sunlight. No touch. No freedom. The families of Channon and Chris visit the cemetery. They lay flowers. They speak at victim rallies. They wait too. Davidson's last known words in a court filing. Asterisk. I live with what happened every day. I can't change it. I can only face what comes. Asterisk. Was justice served? A young couple tortured and murdered. A man locked away forever. Or until the needle comes. Some say death is too slow. Some say it's not enough. Some say no one wins. What do you think? Was this justice, or just more pain in a story that never heals? If this story moved you, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more.